Hi, this is Neil Clements, and this is The Real Deal with Neil. Today we're talking about my first rental property. I bought it at 25 years old, and we're going to talk about, at the time, why it was a good deal. We're going to talk about how it turned out 9 years later, and all the hiccups, but all the triumphs along the way, and answer the question, would I do it again? And is it a good investment for you at this time? So let's get to it. So here's how I got my first rental property. I was 25 years old. We had our first child on the way. Just got married, I think, a year ago. And we were currently renting. And I had already, been employed for a little bit, had graduated college, and we were going out and just trying to figure out, what's next for us. And we wanted to own our own house. And so I was a real estate agent at the time, still am, but was looking online. I searched for about 9 months for some different properties. I started learning values in the area because we relocated to my wife's hometown instead of where I was from. And we started just kind of looking for properties specifically for me that were below market value. I had been reading a lot of books about rental properties, about flipping, about, real estate. And even though I was a realtor, I didn't own any real estate at the time. So I was just kind of getting into it. But I knew what a good deal would look like. I knew what the values were because I had been studying it and studying it and studying it. And that's one of the best things I could probably recommend that you do whenever you're looking for a rental property or even your first house to purchase, even if it's a live-in house, would be to buy deals below market value and buy equity on the front end, because it makes things so much easier, and it makes your decision to buy a house so much easier whenever you're getting, say, $20,000 equity on the front end. And so finally, after a few months of looking, I see this house come along, and my idea of, I guess, a house that I want to buy, especially coming from the MLS, probably different than most people's, because I love to see houses that maybe only have one or two photos. Maybe the photos are done with a cell phone, maybe they're really crummy marketing, maybe the listing description has misspelled words and is very underwhelming as far as the property goes, missing some of the highlights. Gosh, I just know that good deals are coming from those opportunities, and every house that I've ever bought to live in, including this one, kind of met that criteria of a diamond in the rough. And so we went to see it, put it under contract very quickly. I offered exactly what they were asking because it was already under market value already. Maybe it needed some floors, it needed some paint, some just kind of general touch-ups, some cosmetics. And so we went in with some sweat equity after buying it. And on this property, I know we're talking about rental properties, but what I did is I bought it to live in first. And the reason I did that is because I was able to get a 3.5% rate on a conventional loan at 10% down. And for those of you who know rental properties, know you're 20% plus at a much higher rate, maybe a percentage or 2 point higher rate. I chose to live in a house first and then make it into a rental property. And so what I did is I lived there for 2 years. And after those 2 years, I went out and bought my second primary house, very similar, 10% down, 20% down conventional loan at like 4.5% rate, moved a city over a little bit closer to the wife's family and made my first property that I lived in a rental property. And that is like one of the easiest ways to accumulate rental properties. And it's something that I've done over time is just as I move to a new property, keep the house, make it a rental. As I move to a new property, keep the house, make it a rental. It's something that people on my team have done successfully, and it's really, really easy. And the reason it's so easy is because of the down payments and the interest rates and the terms that you get, because a lot of people may not realize, if you don't go out and buy, say, like single family rental properties all day, is that you got to have 20-25% down. Your rates are going to be a percentage point or two higher than what you could get if you live there. And sometimes they won't lend to LLCs. There's complications here. But if you own or occupy, you get the best terms, you get the best rates, you get the lowest down payments, and you get it on a 30-year fixed. And I mean, who can beat that? You don't have to have an adjustable rate mortgage or anything like that. And I was incredibly scared whenever I rented out my property for the first time. I had taken great care of it. I had renovated it myself with my own hands, even planted some crepe myrtle trees in the backyard. I was really nervous. I used a property manager to manage and find good tenants. And you know what happened? I was I didn't get any calls. The repairs that came through, maybe it was a leaky toilet. We had to bring out a plumber for $200. Great property manager, found great tenants. And I just came to realize that it's not that hard. And even now, as I have a bigger single family real estate portfolio, it's not that hard. I only spend maybe an hour a month at most, even really thinking about it. And so a great property manager make all the difference in the world to you whenever you have, especially multiple doors in a single family rental property portfolio or multifamily. But when we talk about the strategy, I guess it's my version of like house hacking. You know, you buy a house, you live in it for a year or two, then you buy another one, move out, make that a rental. You do it over and over and over again. And imagine if you did that, say, 5 times over the course of 5 years, especially if you're a single guy or a single girl. Even with a family, moving once a year or once every other year really isn't the end of the world. And so I hugely reap the benefits of this. And let's go into 9 years later. Okay, so this is return on investment. And fortunately, I was able to own this property at what I would consider one of the biggest bull runs in, I guess, United States history for real estate. I acquired it in 2016. I bought it at $165,000, and currently it's worth about double that. $320,000. And when it really took off was 2021, 2022 is when it really took off and went to the moon. I even took a cash out refi a few years ago, and I was able to take out $35,000 plus of equity out of the property and use that to put into another rental property to help offset some tax gains and to build some more equity in another property, which was huge. At first, it cash flowed $400 to $500 a month like clockwork, really easy. After the cash out refi, it still cash flows $200 to $300 a month. Now, the repairs pretty much eat up most of that cash flow. I would say it's essentially a break even at the end of every year. You know, we've had some bigger ones recently. We had to do a new HVAC system just in the past few months, but you know, that was on a 2006 house. We didn't have to do an HVAC system until 2025, 19 years later. So not the end of the world. We had to replace a water heater. You know, I was a little bit over $1,000 to have to do that. And we've just had a few like knickknacks. Fortunately, though, we've only really had 3 tenants over the time that I've owned this property. One lasted, I think, a year or two, another lasted a year or two, and then the tenant we have in there now has been there for a very long time, like 4 or 5 years. And they were previously at their previous rental location near this house for, I want to say, like 15 years. And so they're long-term tenants. They're not going anywhere. I try to treat them as great as I can. Every single time they call and need a repair, we get somebody out there as soon as we possibly can, because truthfully, I really want to keep them happy. I really want to keep them in the house. I want to keep them paying rent, and I try not to hike the rent on them too much. The only, I guess, unfortunate part and what's really eroded my cash flow more than the refinance that I did was that since the property value has doubled over the course of the last 9 years, well, so has the property taxes. So has the insurance, maybe even tripled during that time frame. And so what makes it very difficult is keeping the rent reasonable for the tenants and treating them well, while at the same time, you know, making sure that I can continue to hold it as an investor and making sure that it's still a lucrative opportunity for me. Because worst case scenario for the tenants and for me is I sell the property because I just can't cash flow anymore. And so to me, it's a very big disservice as a landlord to not hike your rent consistently, especially, you know, just at renewal times, because if you don't hike your rent consistently and you do it all in one big swoop and try to charge $500 to $700 extra because you haven't hiked it in a decade, well, the tenant's going to be pissed. Versus if you hike it, I don't know, $25, $50 every single year for 10 years, then they're like, okay, like we can handle that. We can budget for it. And so, yeah, I'm super grateful to have this property. I also bought several properties right before 2020 and right before that big gain happened. And so been really fortunate in real estate to just kind of ride the wave of appreciation that happened during one of the biggest bull runs that we've seen in history for real estate. And so the question would be like, would I do it again? 1000% yes. Like I absolutely would do it again. You know, like I said, it doesn't necessarily cash flow. However, the appreciation has been there over time. And so I'm still buying rental properties today. Still think they're a very good investment for single family. You know, eventually I have a few commercial properties, probably move into that a little bit more. I like the triple net investing a little bit more than I like the single family. But at the same time, like it's still a very lucrative investment, still a very lucrative tax write-off. And the appreciation has been fantastic, especially when you look at the course of that this is a very average rental property. This is nothing spectacular as far as the appreciation goes. You multiply that times several properties, you can pretty much imagine that, you know, an investor is able to build a pretty good sized portfolio and net worth just based upon having single family rentals. And especially in a very high inflationary environment that we still live in today, even in middle 2025, owning assets, especially like real estate, is a fantastic investment and will continue to do so over time. So I hope this helps, especially if you're younger watching this video. I mean, heck, even I guess if you're older, you don't have a rental property yet, or you don't have a property, like I just encourage you to get in the game. Like even back in 2016 when I was looking at buying this property, the YouTube videos were all out there. The gurus were saying, real estate's overvalued, don't buy, you're gonna lose your shirt, prices are going down, recession's coming, the world is falling. And I just look at myself and I'm like, gosh, if I would have listened to them, oh my gosh, I can't imagine how much wealth I would have lost if I would have listened to everybody out there who said, yeah, don't buy this, or don't do this, or don't build a rental property portfolio. It's the exact same thing as it is now. The best property strategy is to buy discounted assets. I did a video on that, check it out. It should be the video right before this one. And all you have to do is get out there, buy discounted real estate assets, manage them well, and watch the value soar over time. So, hope this helps. Get to it.